In January 2023, NOAA published its temperature data for the globe and all its regions for year ending December 2022. This channel community offers an analysis of that data. In advance, it must be said that many questions were raised during the analysis. One quite obvious question concerns the very concept of the metric global average temperature. Is it perhaps too simple a metric to be meaningful and useful? Is it perhaps concealing the immense complexity and variability of the world's climate and the causes of the variability? But before considering those uncertainties, we move on to the data analysis. We start with an aggregate of the globe. As is widely known, from January 2015 to December 2021, global temperature anomalies experienced a negative trend rate of minus 0.09 degrees Celsius per decade. Over the course of 2022, this fall has increased to minus 0.11 degree Celsius per decade. We will now cover the NOAA defined regions of the globe, starting with North America. From January 2015 to December 2021, temperature anomalies for North America experienced a negative trend of minus 0.73 degrees Celsius per decade. By the end of December 2022, the negative rate increased to minus 0.82 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative trend for North America started in 2014. Before going on to the other NOAA-defined regions, we will further break down the large region of North America. The United States, from 2015 to 2022, the US average temperature had a trend rate of minus 1 degree Fahrenheit per decade. A negative trend had been in place since 2012. Alaska. We measure Alaska temperature by scanning across 65 degrees north latitude between 165 degrees west and 142 degrees west longitude. The average linear temperature trend rate across Alaska 2015 to 2022 was minus 2.55 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative trend began 2013. We also need to include the capital city of Alaska, as you know, as it is located in what is sometimes called the Panhandle of Alaska and at 134 degrees west, which is further east than our main scan. 2015 to 2022, it had a temperature anomaly trend rate of minus 1.77 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative trend started 2012. Northwest Canada. Measured along 65 degrees north from 142 degrees west to 115 degrees west, the average temperature anomaly linear trend rate across northwest Canada was minus 2.01 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative trend started 2012. Greenland is geographically classed as part of North America, but belongs to Denmark. We look at East Greenland's ice sheet and start the scan at 45 degrees west longitude and finish at 20 degrees west. 2015 to 2022, the average temperature anomaly linear trend rate was minus 1.1 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative temperature trend started 1999. Although Iceland is not part of North America but part of Denmark and Europe, we will include it at this point, as it follows the negative temperature trend across 65 degrees north. We scan it from 24 degrees west to 12 degrees west. 2015 to 2022, the average temperature anomaly linear trend rate was minus 1.45 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative temperature trend started in the year 2000. We now cover quite quickly the other regions of the globe as defined by NOAA. 2015 to 2022, the Hawaiian region had a negative trend of minus 0.92 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative trend commenced 2013. 2015 to 2022, the East-North Pacific region had a negative trend of minus 1.16. A negative trend commenced 2012. 2015 to 2022, the Caribbean islands had a negative trend of minus 0.22 degrees Celsius per decade. A negative trend began 2014. 2015 to 2022, the Atlantic Main Development Region had a negative trend of minus 0.06. South America, 2015 to 2022, it had a negative trend of minus 0.33 degrees Celsius per decade. Its negative trend commenced 2014. Oceania, 2015 to 2022, it had a negative trend of minus 0.48 degrees. Its cooling trend started 2013. 2015 to 2022, Africa had a negative trend of minus 0.13 degrees Celsius per decade. We now come to the only two regions in the world that have been experiencing a positive trend in temperature since 2015. From 2015 to 2022, Europe experienced a positive trend of plus 0.3 degrees Celsius per decade. However, a cooling trend of minus 0.46 degrees Celsius per decade commenced 2018. From 2015 to 2022, Asia also experienced a positive temperature trend of plus 0.21 degrees Celsius per decade. But for the past 4 years, since 2019, Asia too has been experiencing a negative trend in temperature. At this point, it is evident that using a single climate indicator, global average temperature, is concealing much of the complexity and variability of the Earth's climate. For the climate is immensely complex. For example, within the two regions of Europe and Asia that have a positive trend since 2015, there are locations that have experienced a negative temperature trend over that same period. Just a few examples. In Europe, Sweden at 65 degrees north, 20 degrees east longitude had a negative temperature trend 2015 to 2022. This negative trend started 2013. In the European sector of the Russian Federation at 65 degrees north and 40 degrees east, there was a negative trend 2015 to 2022. This negative trend commenced 2013. In the Asian sector of the Russian Federation at 65 degrees north and 150 degrees east, there was a negative trend 2015 to 2022. A negative trend started 2014. How to interpret these findings? More than one interpretation is possible, but a straightforward inference is that there is a gradual wave of cooling sweeping across the world, from Greenland in 1999 to the United States in 2012 and across to Asia in 2019. This chart gives a high-level summary. There are, of course, further questions that these findings prompt. For example, throughout the period covered, the atmospheric concentration of methane has continued to rise. So too, the atmospheric concentrations of nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide. It too is continuing to rise. This must throw large doubt onto the greenhouse gas hypothesis that the human-caused increases in the atmospheric concentration of the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide and methane are causing an increase in global average temperature, which in turn must throw doubt on the validity of the United Nations 2030 agenda and the aims of the Paris Agreement, which can only be achieved through a significant reduction in emissions of greenhouse gases. In this channel community's next video, we will conduct a risk analysis on the UN 2030 agenda and will highlight that the belief in the greenhouse gas hypothesis may be concealing an enormous risk to humanity. It is a risk that is rarely, if ever, discussed. For now, we leave you with the summary of the NOAA data for end of year 2022. If you enjoyed this video, you are invited to join our community on locals.com. This link will take you directly to our site.